Okay, so have you ever been there? That exact moment?
What kind?
You've just maybe fired off that really angry email, or maybe you made a decision like super fast in the heat of the moment.
Ah, yeah, like an impulse buy or
Yeah.
saying something sharp.
Exactly. Something sharp to someone you care about, and then maybe it's the next morning, or maybe just, I don't know, an hour later. You get that wave of regret just washes right over you.
Oh, definitely. That sinking feeling. You wish you could just hit rewind.
Right, undo it. It's such a common thing, isn't it? That clarity after you've acted. Because in those moments, when the feeling is really strong, maybe it's fury or just deep sadness or even like crazy excitement,
Mm.
it feels permanent, totally overwhelming. Like it's the only reality there is.
It really does. Your current emotion just feels like the absolute unshakable truth. But that's the fascinating thing we're really going to dive into today, using all these great sources you brought together. Emotions, yeah, they're powerful, incredibly powerful. But, and this is the key, they're fundamentally impermanent. They don't last.
So our mission today is to explore that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We want to understand why they feel so overwhelming, but also why they fade. And then, crucially, we want to explore a whole toolkit of techniques. Techniques grounded in, well, surprisingly similar ideas from ancient Stoic philosophy and modern psychology
Okay, techniques to help you, what? Avoid the regret.
to help you avoid making those big, potentially permanent decisions based on what are ultimately just temporary feelings.
Right. So the goal for you, listening right now, is to get a deeper handle on why feelings feel so huge in the moment.
Mm-hmm. And why they pass.
And then, yeah, the practical stuff, how to
Yeah.
keep your cool, how to respond wisely, after the mood shifts.
So you can ride out those emotional waves, make choices you can actually stand by later on when the storm's passed. Choices that reflect who you really are, not just who you were in that fleeting moment.
Okay, let's start with that core idea then. Because it sounds simple, but it's tricky in practice. Emotions are powerful, yes, but temporary.
Fundamentally temporary.
hmm
It's amazing how easily our minds trick us, though.
Totally. When you're really in the grip of it, like that boiling anger you think will never cool down, or maybe a sadness that feels like it's going to stretch on forever.
Or even that giddy high where you think, this is it, I'll always feel this amazing.
Yeah. You just assume it's going to last. Your mind gets into what psychologists call a heated state.
Right.
And it's like your current perspective is the only one possible. Everything else just vanishes. Tunnel vision.
And there's a name for that specific mental trick, that illusion.
Okay.
It's called the hot-cold empathy gap.
Hot-cold empathy gap. Okay, break that down.
Sure. So when you're in an emotional hot state, angry, excited, scared, whatever, you find it really hard to predict how you'd feel or behave in a cooler, more rational state. You underestimate how much the emotion is influencing you right now. And maybe even more interestingly, you struggle to even imagine being calm or thinking differently.
So, like, if I'm furious, I can't really picture myself being calm later.
Exactly. It feels impossible. Or if you're, say, head over heels in love, it's really difficult to imagine a future point where you might not feel that same intensity. Your understanding gets locked into your current state.
State dependent, okay.
Yeah. You lose sight of the fact that the mood is just, well, it's just weather. It's passing. It's not the climate.
And modern science actually backs this up pretty strongly, right? Research shows moods change, and often way faster than we think they will.
Oh, absolutely. We're consistently quite bad at predicting our emotional futures. We tend to overestimate both how strongly we'll feel an emotion and how long that feeling will actually last.
Is there a term for that specific misjudgment, that overprediction?
Yes, there is. It's known as the impact bias.
Right.
Or sometimes, when we're focused specifically on how long the feeling lasts, it's called the durability bias.
Impact bias and durability bias.
Yeah.
It's like a double whammy. We think it'll hit harder and stick around longer than it actually does.
Precisely. Our intuitive emotional forecasting is, frankly, often way off.
Can you give us some examples from the studies? What does that look like?
Sure, there's a classic one with students who didn't do well on an exam. They predicted feeling really, really disappointed for a long time afterwards.
Okay, makes sense.
But when researchers actually followed up, their sadness faded much more quickly than they'd anticipated.
Interesting.
And this durability bias, thinking the feeling will last longer than it does at days it isn't just for negative stuff. It happens with positive feelings, too.
Like what?
Well, think about new drivers taking their driving test. The ones who failed predicted they'd be gutted for days. But here's the kicker. Even the ones who had failed before, who you'd think would know better,
Right, they've been through it.
they still overestimated how long the disappointment would stick around. The pattern holds up really consistently.
And I remember reading something similar about sports fans too, right? Expecting weeks of euphoria if their team won the big game.
Exactly. They predict days, maybe weeks, of pure bliss.
Yeah.
And sure, there's an initial high, it's intense, but that peak happiness, it fades way, way faster than they thought it would.
It really drives home that point. Feelings just don't last, even though they feel like they will when we're inside them. We just keep exaggerating their staying power in our heads.
So why do we keep making this mistake? Why fall for this illusion of permanence again and again? A big part of it is we forget how good we are at adapting.
Adapting.
Yeah, human adaptation. As a species, we're incredibly good at returning to an emotional baseline, a kind of equilibrium. Psychologists call it emotional evanescence.
Evanescence, like vanishing.
Kind of, yeah. The idea that the emotional punch of events, good or bad, naturally fades over time as we adjust. Think about it. That amazing promotion you were sure would keep you on cloud nine for months.
Yeah.
The initial bliss softens. Or that awful breakup you thought would crush you forever. The acute pain eventually lessens as you adapt, learn, maybe even grow from it.
We've all felt that, haven't we? Like that really sharp grief eventually becoming more of a bittersweet memory, or maybe being super embarrassed about something, and then years later you can actually tell the story and laugh about it.
Right. Time does heal, or at least it softens the edges, often much faster than we predict when we're hurting. Which brings us to a really mind-blowing insight from neuroscience.
Okay, I'm ready.
It comes from Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor, the brain scientist who had that incredible experience studying her own stroke.
Oh, I know her work, yeah.
She made this profound observation about the actual physiological lifespan of an emotion's initial kick.
Okay.
When something happens, you get insulted, you get scared, there's a chemical reaction, hormones flood your system. Dr. Taylor observed that this initial chemical surge lasts only about 90 seconds.
90 seconds, that's it.
That's the initial physiological response. A minute and a half. After that, she says, if the emotion is still going strong, if you're still fuming, or still terrified, or still wildly elated, it's not the original chemicals doing it anymore.
So what is it then?
It's our thoughts, our own stories, the way we're replaying the event in our mind, the interpretations we're adding. That's what's rekindling the feeling, keeping it alive.
Wow. Okay, that's actually huge. So if I'm still mad 5 minutes after someone cuts me off in traffic,
It's likely because you're replaying it, thinking about how rude they were, maybe imagining confronting them. You're actively feeding the anger with your thoughts.
so the initial automatic jolt is super brief, and after that 90 seconds, there's a moment, a choice point.
Exactly. An opportunity to either let it naturally fade or to consciously or unconsciously keep pouring fuel on the fire with your thinking. As Dr. Taylor suggests, any emotion sticking around longer than that is one you are, in a sense, choosing to perpetuate through your narratives.
That pause, then, that's the key. Even just taking a breath.
That tiny pause is where you can break the cycle. Shift from being run by the emotion to simply being aware of it. It's incredibly empowering.
And this fits perfectly with what older wisdom traditions were saying, right? Like Stoicism or Buddhism.
Absolutely. They always emphasize that if you can just pause, just not react immediately to that trigger, the initial flame often just flickers out on its own. The revolutionary part isn't just the 90 seconds, it's realizing that after that window, it's not the emotion doing things to you. It's you doing the emotion by clinging to the story.
Knowing that gives you a chance to step in and just let go.
It's a massive point of leverage.
And just recognizing this, that emotions are temporary, that can make such a difference day to day. You know the saying, this too shall pass.
Cliché, but true.
Totally. But reminding yourself of that impermanence when you're really feeling it, that can stop you from doing something drastic, something you'll regret, just because you mistakenly think this feeling is forever.
Right, just wait. Often the feeling loses its grip surprisingly quickly. You can literally feel yourself changing emotionally.
It's like, drafting that furious email,
Yeah.
but saving it instead of sending it. Then you come back a few hours later, read it, and just cringe. Whoa, glad I didn't send that.
Or the urge to fire off some angry comment online. You pause for 5 minutes, maybe get distracted, and suddenly the urge is just gone. You're not the same emotional person you were 5 minutes ago.
So outlasting your mood really just means delaying action, giving your cooler head a chance to catch up.
Exactly. And as we'll explore next, there's a very high cost to not doing that, to acting while you're still in that temporary emotional storm. Philosophers knew it centuries ago, and the consequences now can be even more severe.
Okay, so let's talk about that cost. Why is hammering home this idea of emotions fading so important?
Because, simply put, when we act like a temporary mood is a permanent reality, the consequences of that action can be devastatingly permanent,
Right, the decision outlives the mood.
massively, and often with really painful, long-lasting results. We see it all the time in everyday life, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. Like maybe shouting, "I quit," at your boss in a moment of frustration.
Or saying something really cutting to your partner, words you can't ever truly take back, even if you apologize later.
Or maybe even positive emotions, like getting caught up in the excitement and making some huge impulsive purchase.
Totally. Drinks on me. Put it all on my card. And then the credit card bill arrives, and the excitement is long gone, but the debt is very real.
So an intense emotion doesn't just change how we feel, it actually changes how we think, right? It warps our judgment.
Profoundly so. Modern psychology shows strong moods systematically bias how we process information and make decisions.
How does that work exactly? Like take being really happy, euphoric even? How does that mess with judgment?
Well, intense positive moods can actually lead to unrealistic optimism.
Hmm.
You tend to downplay risks and overestimate the likelihood of good outcomes.
Really? So being too happy can be bad for decision making.
It can be. There's a fascinating study with professional traders. They induced cheerful moods in some of them. And those cheerful traders actually performed worse. They took more unnecessary risks, made sloppier trades, and lost more money compared to traders who were in a more neutral or even slightly downbeat mood.
Wow. So a bit of caution, maybe even pessimism, can be helpful sometimes.
It seems so. Extreme positivity can make you let your guard down. That feeling of everything's amazing, what could possibly go wrong, might lead you to make commitments or bets you definitely avoid if you were thinking more coolly. Euphoria can be just as risky as anger when it comes to making sound choices.
That's a really important point. We usually focus on the negative emotions being the problem. But speaking of those, anger. It's notorious for making us do rash things. How does anger specifically hijack our decision making?
Yeah, anger is a big one. Research by psychologists like Jennifer Lerner shows anger creates a strong bias towards action and risk-taking.
Action and risk taking. Okay.
When you're angry, you're more likely to make bold, often aggressive choices. And you tend to feel quite confident about those choices, even if they're not actually wise.
Why is that?
Anger narrows your focus. You zero in on the perceived threat or injustice, and you become less receptive to new information, alternative viewpoints, or potential downsides.
But that explains so much, like sending that scathing email without thinking it through or driving aggressively.
Exactly. Anger gives you energy, it motivates you to do something, confront the problem, but at the same time, it severely impairs your ability to judge the situation clearly or consider the consequences. You become, as the Stoics put it so well, temporarily irrational, deaf to reason.
Seneca called it a short madness. It's amazing how spot on those ancient observations were, validated now by modern science.
Truly incredible.
And it's not just anger or euphoria, is it? What about things like sadness or frustration? Can they lead to bad choices too?
Definitely. Deep sadness or despair can be really insidious. Someone feeling hopeless might prematurely quit a job, end a relationship, or abandon a project that they actually value deeply when they're feeling better.
Acting from that what's the point mindset.
Exactly. It doesn't matter anyway. They make self-sabotaging choices, thinking nothing can improve. But then, inevitably, the mood lifts.
But the consequences of the actions are still there.
Precisely. The problems they created or worsened by acting impulsively haven't gone away. The emotional storm passed, but the real-world wreckage remains.
It's a steep price. And it feels like that price is amplified now, living in this digital age where everything feels so permanent.
Oh, absolutely. We often regret the actions taken under the influence of strong emotion, not the emotion itself. And the digital world makes those actions incredibly hard, if not impossible, to undo.
That send button.
It's irreversible. Once it's out there, it leaves a trace, a permanent, often public record that can follow you.
Like that famous advice from the football coach, Herm Edwards.
Exactly. Don't press send. He knew. He warned players constantly about posting angry rants or foolish things online. Once it's tweeted, posted, messaged in rage, or even extreme excitement, you can't pull it back.
And we hear stories all the time, right? Teenagers facing school consequences for emotional online outbursts.
or employees getting fired over social media rants they typed out late at night when they were upset.
Even college admissions being revoked because of old, impulsive, offensive posts dug up years later.
It's heartbreaking. A single moment of unchecked emotion, vented digitally, becomes a lasting stain, a permanent consequence.
So the takeaway is really clear. Temporary feelings, if we let them drive the bus, can create incredibly enduring, often painful fallout.
Especially online.
Yeah. So before you hit send, before you make that big decision while you're feeling overwhelmed, just remember, the feeling will likely change. The action, much harder to undo. Which leads us perfectly into exploring some ancient wisdom on this.
Right. The Stoics were thinking about this millennia ago.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Right.
Long before we had fancy terms like cognitive bias or emotional regulation, ancient philosophers, especially the Stoics in Greece and Rome, were incredibly sharp observers of how our emotions can lead us down the wrong path.
They really were. And it's important to get this right. Stoicism isn't about being cold or suppressing feelings entirely. That's a common misunderstanding.
Yeah, people think Stoic means emotionless.
Right. But it's much more nuanced. It's about acknowledging your emotions, recognizing them, letting them be there, but crucially, not letting them control your actions.
Okay, so acknowledge, don't obey blindly.
Exactly. The core Stoic insight is incredibly empowering. We might not always choose that first flash of anger or fear or desire those initial impulses just happen, but we always have a choice about how we respond to them.
There's a gap.
Yes, a tiny, maybe almost imperceptible moment between the stimulus, the thing that triggers the emotion, and our action. And in that gap, that pause, lies our freedom, our power to choose a different way.
And philosophers like Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, they focused on how to widen that gap, how to use that freedom.
Precisely. They developed practical techniques to maintain that space, that agency. They understood intuitively that strong emotions are like unreliable messengers, loud, insistent, but often wrong about the long term, and therefore dangerous guides for making sound judgments.
Let's talk about Seneca. He wrote a lot about anger, didn't he? Calling it that short madness.
He did. Anger's a classic. He saw how anger just strips away rationality. So what was his advice? How did he suggest we stop it from taking over?
Yeah, what was the practical takeaway?
His advice was essentially to catch it early. He said, the best plan is to reject straight away the first incentives to anger. For if once it begins to carry us away, it is hard to get back again.
So nip it in the bud. Don't let it escalate.
Exactly. Intervene before it becomes that raging fire. He wasn't saying deny the spark, but manage it before it consumes you. He suggested concrete things, deliberately delaying your reaction.
Like counting to 10.
Yes, or taking a walk, deep breathing, anything, to create a buffer between the provocation and your response. Because, as he observed, once that passion takes hold and starts carrying you away, it leaves us no retreat.
No retreat, meaning you're stuck.
You can't think clearly anymore. You can't easily undo the damage you might do to relationships, to your reputation, to yourself. We've all been there, right? Saying or doing something in anger we desperately wish we could take back. The Stoics wanted to prevent that very outcome by managing the emotion at its source.
And Marcus Aurelius, the emperor philosopher, he was constantly writing about this in his journal, the Meditations, wasn't he? Reminding himself about emotional control.
Constantly. He was dealing with immense pressure, leading Rome, facing wars, plagues, betrayals. Keeping his cool was essential. There's that incredible quote of his, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?"
Oof. Yeah, that hits home. What the anger makes you do hurts more than what caused the anger.
Precisely. That insult that made you angry might sting for a moment. But if you react by lashing out and burning a bridge or making a terrible decision, the fallout from your reaction can last far, far longer.
So Aurelius practiced reining it in.
He did.
Huh?
And he relied heavily on a core Stoic idea, the dichotomy of control.
Dichotomy of control. Okay, what's that?
It's about focusing your energy only on what's truly within your power. What can you control? Your own thoughts, your judgments, your choices, your actions.
Right, my stuff.
And what can't you control? Pretty much everything else. Other people's behavior, their opinions, external events like traffic or the weather.
Okay, so focus on my response, not the event itself.
Exactly. Accept what you can't change and put all your effort into choosing a wise, virtuous response to it. It stops you from wasting energy raging against things outside your sphere of influence.
And then there was Epictetus, the former slave-turned-teacher. He had that really concise line.
Man is disturbed not by things, but by the views he takes of them.
Yeah, that one. It sounds almost like modern therapy.
It really does. It's basically the foundation of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. It's not the event itself that causes the strongest emotion, but our interpretation of it, the story we tell ourselves about what it means,
Change the story, change the feeling.
and change the reaction. Epictetus knew that our judgments fuel our feelings. If you get cut off in traffic,
My go-to example.
right, you can choose the story. That jerk did it on purpose to disrespect me, which leads to anger. Or you could choose. Maybe they're rushing to the hospital, or maybe they just didn't see me,
Which leads to less anger.
or at least a more measured response. The Stoics would advocate for choosing the interpretation that promotes inner peace and allows you to act virtuously, guided by reason, rather than being jerked around by fleeting, destructive passions.
So again, it's not about not feeling. The goal isn't to be a robot.
Not at all. The goal is temperance, emotional balance, having feelings in the right proportion, guided by wisdom and reason, not being overwhelmed by them.
Finding that calm center.
Exactly. And crucially, this wasn't just about negative emotions. They warned about excessive positive ones, too.
Like too much joy or desire.
Yes, because those can also cloud judgment, lead to recklessness, make you promise things you can't deliver. Getting swept away by any strong emotion, positive or negative, was seen as a potential pitfall. The aim was always equilibrium, clarity of mind, so your actions were chosen, not just compelled.
And there's that amazing historical example that fits perfectly here. Abraham Lincoln and his hot letters.
Ah, yes, a brilliant practical application of these ideas, even if he wasn't formally a Stoic.
So when Lincoln got really angry or frustrated with someone, a general, a politician,
Which happened often, running a country during a civil war.
right, he would sit down and write this incredibly fiery, often scathing letter, pouring out all his frustration, all his anger, directly addressed to the person.
Get it all out.
But then, and this is the genius part, he'd put it aside. He wouldn't send it. He'd let himself cool down maybe for days. And later he'd just file it away, sometimes marking it never sent, never signed.
It's such a powerful strategy. There's that famous instance with General Meade after Gettysburg. Lincoln was furious. Meade hadn't pursued Lee's defeated army aggressively enough.
Thought I could have ended the war sooner.
Exactly. Lincoln wrote this absolutely blistering letter to Meade, but he never sent it. He probably realized, once calm, that sending it might demoralize his general, be unfair given the circumstances, or just be counterproductive.
So the letters were a private release valve.
Precisely. Safe catharsis. He got the emotional pressure out without causing irreversible damage to relationships or the war effort. It's that Stoic meta moment, perfectly enacted. Pause, reflect, let the heat dissipate, then decide.
And the outcome for Lincoln? Better decisions, right. He avoided burning bridges.
He made far more considered judgments. Decisions made from a place of calm wisdom served him and the country much better. The Stoics would have absolutely proved. They knew if you can just ride out that first emotional wave, reason gets a chance to step back in.
Like Seneca said, reason herself, who holds the reins, is only strong while she remains apart from the passions.
Exactly. Give reason that space, let it regain control, and you master your next move. So the Stoic approach beautifully aligns with our goal of outlasting moods. Feel it, observe it, let it pass, then choose your response deliberately. Which brings us to, okay, how do we actually do this in the thick of it? What are the practical tools?
Right. Because knowing you should wait is one thing. Actually doing it when you feel that intense urge to react immediately, that's the hard part.
It really is.
Yeah.
That compulsion to lash out, give in, do something right now can feel overwhelming. But luckily, we have some concrete, actionable strategies, pulling from both psychology and that ancient wisdom to help you build that skill. This is your emotional toolkit.
Okay, toolkit time. What's strategy number 1?
Strategy 1 is simply hit the pause button. Psychologists call this creating a meta moment. It's that deliberate, conscious pause you insert between the trigger and your usual automatic reaction.
So literally just stop.
Literally, stop. When you feel that surge, anger, panic, even overwhelming excitement, just pause. And you can make it physical. Take one slow, deep breath, or maybe 3. Really focus on the air going in and out.
What does that little pause actually do in the brain?
It's surprisingly powerful. It interrupts the automatic fight or flight response driven by the amygdala, your emotional center. It gives your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, a chance to come back online.
And the deep breathing, not just a cliche.
Not at all. Deep, slow breathing actively stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's built-in calming mechanism. It physically lowers your heart rate, blood pressure, that feeling of arousal. Even just a few seconds of pausing and breathing can noticeably lower the emotional temperature.
So next time I feel triggered, literally picture a pause button Or maybe hear Herm Edwards yelling, "Don't press send."
Whatever works. That tiny conscious break is where you reclaim control. It's your moment of power.
Okay, pause button. Got it. What's next?
Technique number 2 flows right from that. Remind yourself, this too shall pass. Simple, maybe sounds trite, but incredibly effective when you're swamped by feeling. Verbally, or just in your head, tell yourself the emotion is temporary.
Like literally say, "This feeling won't last."
Yeah, this is a passing state. I won't feel exactly like this in an hour, or tomorrow, or next week. The Stoics did this as part of accepting the transient nature of things. Amor fati.
And modern therapists suggest similar things, right? Like mantras.
Absolutely. Things like feelings are not facts, or just repeating, it will pass. Accepting the impermanence helps you ride the wave instead of drowning in it. Often, just that awareness, okay, I'm in a hot state right now, my cooler self is coming back, is enough to stop you doing something destructive.
It breaks the spell, that feeling of being totally consumed.
Exactly. It's like a mental pinch to remind you this isn't the permanent reality.
Okay, pause, remind myself it's temporary. Technique 3.
Number 3 builds directly on Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor's insight. Use the 90-second rule.
Right, the 90-second chemical rush.
Exactly. So when a sudden, intense emotion hits you, anger, fear, even a strong craving, try consciously observing the physical sensations of that emotion for 90 seconds without reacting.
How do you do that? Watch a clock.
You can watch the second hand on a clock or your phone, or just count slowly to 90 in your head. The key is to consciously inhibit any impulsive action, word, or even tensing up during that minute and a half. Just watch the feeling like you'd watch a cloud pass.
And the idea is, after 90 seconds,
The initial biochemical surge that triggered the intense feeling will have largely dissipated. You'll likely notice the raw urgency has lessened. You won't necessarily be perfectly calm, the issue might still be there, but the intensity might drop from a 9 down to a 6 or 5.
which is a big difference, enough to maybe think a bit more clearly.
That's the goal. You get back in the driver's seat mentally. And remember, Dr. Taylor's point is crucial. If the feeling is still raging after 90 seconds, it's likely because you are now actively feeding it with your thoughts and stories. So give it that 90 seconds. Observe. See if you feel that shift. Often, you absolutely will.
Okay, 90-second observation. That's doable. Strategy 4.
Number 4, put it in words. Journal or draft, but don't send. This is the link in hot letters technique. If you're furious or overwhelmed or ecstatic and want to make grand declarations, write it all down.
Get it out safely.
Exactly. Pour every bit of that emotion onto paper or into a private digital document. Vent completely.
But the key is,
The absolute key is do not send it, do not publish it. This is purely for you. It's a safe container for the emotion. It provides catharsis, that release of pressure, without the real-world fallout.
and often just writing it down is enough.
Very often, the act of articulating the feelings, externalizing them, actually cools you down. Afterwards, you might realize you don't need to say anything at all, or if you do, you can go back later when you're calm and edit that raw outpouring into something much more measured and constructive. I know I've got a drafts folder that saved me a lot of trouble.
Me too. And journaling in general, like Marcus Aurelius did, helps with this, right?
Hugely. Putting feelings into specific words, I feel angry because, or I feel hurt when, engages the language parts of your brain, which tends to reduce the intensity of the raw emotion in the limbic system. It's like naming the storm gives you a bit of distance and control.
Okay, write it out, don't send. Good one. Number 5.
Number 5 is reframe the situation, cognitive reappraisal. This is where you actively challenge the thoughts that are fueling the fire. Ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now that's making me feel this way?
The interpretation, like Epictetus said.
Exactly, and then ask, is that story definitely 100% true? Are there other possible ways to look at this situation? Because often it's our judgments about the event, not just the event itself, that cause the most intense pain.
So back to the friend being late for dinner example.
Perfect. Instead of the automatic thought they disrespected me, they don't care, which fuels anger,
Try to actively consider other possibilities.
right? Maybe traffic was horrendous. Maybe they had a family emergency. Maybe they're just having a really off day. It's not about making excuses for them necessarily, but about choosing an interpretation that causes you less distress and allows for a more constructive response.
Changing the narrative changes the feeling. This is straight out of CBT, right?
Absolutely. It's a core technique.
Yeah.
And you can help yourself reframe by asking perspective-shifting questions. How will I likely see this situation in a week, a month, a year?
Or, What advice would I give my best friend if they were going through this exact same thing?
Brilliant one. Creating that mental distance helps shrink the emotion from feeling like an overwhelming monster down to something more manageable.
Okay, reframe. Challenge the story. Number 6.
Number 6, channel the energy constructively. Emotions are energy, right?
Mm.
Especially strong ones like anger or anxiety. Sometimes the best way to ride it out isn't just sitting still, but doing something physical.
Like exercise.
Yes. Go for a brisk walk, a run, do some jumping jacks, punch a pillow, whatever works for you. Physical activity helps burn off stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. It clears your head.
Or maybe something productive but physical.
Definitely. Some people find cleaning, organizing a closet, gardening, or tackling some other chore really helpful when they're agitated. It's engaging, distracting in a good way, and you get something done.
As long as it's constructive, not destructive, right? The Stoics would approve of hitting a punching bag, maybe not punching a wall.
Exactly. Choose something that maintains virtue, doesn't cause harm. By the time you physically work through some of that energy, your mind is often clearer, and you can approach the situation more calmly. Motion helps restore equilibrium.
Okay, channel the energy. Number 7 feels really important.
It is. Number 7 is delay important decisions. Sleep on it. This is a hard and fast rule. If you are in any significantly heightened emotional state, furious, ecstatic, deeply sad, terrified, you commit to not making major decisions until you've had time to return to a more neutral baseline.
How long is enough time?
It depends. Could be a few hours. Often sleeping on it overnight is best. For really big life decisions, maybe even a week or longer, depending on the emotional intensity and the stakes involved.
That old wisdom. Don't promise when you're happy. Don't reply when you're angry. Don't decide when you're sad.
It's timeless because it's true. Big feelings, high or low, are just not the right state for making choices with long-term consequences.
So that resignation letter written in a fit of pique.
Save it as a draft. Look at it tomorrow morning with fresh eyes. Chances are, it'll look very different.
Feeling like ending a relationship in the middle of a fight.
Give it a day or two. Let the hurt subside. See if the issue looks the same when you can think clearly.
Or feeling on top of the world and wanting to make a huge financial commitment.
Pause. Let the euphoria settle. Your practical long-term self might have some important objections once the excitement wears off.
Time is really the key ally here.
Absolutely. As your mood shifts back towards normal, you can evaluate if the decision still makes sense, if it aligns with your core values when you're not emotionally charged. Often, that urgency you felt just melts away. And if it is still a good idea when you're calm, you'll execute it better anyway.
Okay, delay big decisions. Sleep on it. Number 8.
Number 8, perspective check with others. When your own judgment is clouded by strong feelings, talking it through with someone you trust, someone level-headed, can be incredibly valuable.
A reality check.
Exactly. They aren't feeling what you're feeling, so they can often see the situation more objectively. A good friend or mentor might gently say, "Wow, you sound really upset right now. Maybe give it 24 hours before you do anything."
Or they might help you see angles you're missing because you're so focused on the emotion.
Yes, they can point out potential consequences you've overlooked, or offer alternative interpretations your emotional brain just isn't considering.
But choosing the right person is key, right?
Crucial. Choose someone known for being calm, honest, and empathetic.
Yeah.
Avoid the friend who just fans the flames and tells you, yeah, you should totally tell them off.
Right, you want someone who lends you their calm, not amplifies your storm.
Precisely. And sometimes just the act of explaining the situation to someone else forces you to organize your thoughts, engage your rational brain, and naturally calms you down a bit. It's similar to the journaling effect.
Okay, get a trusted outside perspective. Number 9 sounds interesting. Stoic pre-mortem.
Yes, this is more of a preventative strategy, deeply rooted in Stoic practice. It's called premeditatio malorum, premeditation of evils, or negative visualization.
Sounds kind of depressing.
It's not about being pessimistic, it's about mental preparation. You spend a little time imagining potential setbacks or challenges, things that could go wrong, and thinking about how you would handle them calmly and virtuously if they did.
So it's like an emotional fire drill.
That's a great way to put it. It inoculates you against shock and extreme reactions. If you've already mentally rehearsed how you'd respond calmly to a difficult situation, you're far less likely to be thrown off balance if it actually happens.
So before a big presentation, I might imagine, what if my tech fails? What if I get tough questions?
Exactly. And you'd visualize yourself handling it with composure. Or before a difficult conversation, what if they get defensive? How will I stay calm and stick to my points?
So when the challenge arises, it doesn't feel like such a catastrophe.
Right. It reduces the shock value, which reduces the emotional spike. You're prepared. You've mentally been there before. Modern psychology confirms this builds resilience. You become less reactive, more deliberate, because you're not blindsided.
Okay, premeditate challenges. And finally, number 10.
Number 10 is maybe the most foundational long-term practice. Cultivate emotional awareness daily. This means regularly making an effort to simply tune into and notice what you're feeling, and maybe why. Mindfulness meditation is a great tool for this. Or even just simple check-ins throughout the day. Pause. What am I feeling right now? Anger, anxiety, joy. What might have triggered it?
Just noticing without judgment.
Exactly. This builds the mental muscle of recognizing emotions as they arise without immediately getting swept away by them or needing to act on them instantly.
So you get quicker at catching yourself. Okay, I feel irritation bubbling up.
Precisely. I notice I'm feeling defensive. Or, wow, I'm feeling really optimistic right now. Maybe I should double check my assumptions. That awareness creates that crucial space between feeling and reaction. It shifts you from being on autopilot to being an observer of your inner state.
Like Marcus Aurelius, journaling every day, analyzing his own reactions.
It's the same principle. And modern research backs this up strongly. People who can accurately identify and name their emotions generally manage them much better.
So knowing what you're feeling helps you control the response.
Tremendously. It turns emotions from being these mysterious forces that dictate your actions into valuable messengers. They become data, sometimes uncomfortable data, but data you can use to inform your choices rather than directives you have to blindly obey.
So these 10 techniques, they build a kind of buffer zone.
That's a perfect way to think about it. An emotional buffer zone, a shield against impulsive regret. The goal isn't to stop feeling feelings or vital information. The goal is to stop being a slave to them in the heat of the moment. You learn to respond thoughtfully, wisely, after the feeling has delivered its message.
And if you practice this, you find you can wait out even strong moods.
You absolutely can. And when the mood passes, clarity returns. And the decisions you make in that clarity, they're the ones that truly serve you in the long run.
Okay, let's wrap this up. That core message really stands out. Moods are like the weather.
Exactly. Some days sunny, some stormy, some just gray.
But crucially, they all pass. Even the worst downpour eventually stops and the sky clears.
It always does.
And the absolute key, the challenge, is remembering that truth when you're right in the middle of the storm. Don't make that permanent decision. Don't burn the bridge. Don't sign the thing. Don't send the message based on what's just a temporary cloud passing overhead.
And it's powerful how both ancient Stoic wisdom and modern psychological science arrive at the same conclusion here.
Yeah, the convergence is striking.
The Stoics saw mastering our response to emotion, not being mastered by it, as essential for a good, flourishing life. And psychology confirms that our hot state decisions often fail us, precisely because that state is fleeting. It's not reliable.
So using these strategies, we talked about pausing, reframing, writing, but not sending, delaying the big stuff.
You're honoring both perspectives. You're giving your rational brain the time it needs to collaborate with your emotional brain, instead of letting emotions just hijack the controls and steer you somewhere you don't want to go.
And the payoff is huge, right? Fewer regrets.
So many fewer regrets. Fewer apologies you wish you didn't have to make. Fewer if-onlys. And it doesn't mean you feel less. You might actually feel more fully because you're not scared of the feelings themselves.
So just don't let them dictate your actions.
Exactly. You become like the eye of the hurricane, that calm center that can observe the chaos swirling around without being swept away by it. That leads to better choices, stronger connections, a more stable and fulfilling path through life.
So maybe the final thought for everyone listening, something to hold on to. Never make a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion.
That's the mantra.
Yeah. So next time a mood washes over you, any mood, intense joy, deep frustration, whatever, remember it's just a wave. You have options.
You can learn to surf it, use its energy, you can float with it, let it pass underneath you, or you can just step back from the shoreline and watch it for a bit.
Do whatever you need to do to avoid flailing and drowning in that immediate moment.
Because if you can just outlast that wave, resist that first urgent impulse to react, the emotional seas will calm down soon. And you will be so incredibly glad you didn't capsize your ship in that temporary squall.
Feel the feelings, definitely. But let the real you, your values, your long-term goals, the person you are when you're calm, let that, you decide what to do about them once they've passed.
Balance that emotional honesty with patient wisdom. That way, when the tides of mood go out, you're left standing on solid ground. With actions, you can be proud of actions made by the enduring you, not the fleeting you of one passing feeling.